I recently have come across a movement spearheaded by Evangelical Christians designed to misinform their flock and others in their general public as to the dangers of climate change. Hi, I'm Francis Nye, and this week on Today's Religious Truth, we're going to explore the cult of the Green Dragon. So let's get started. They, the leaders of the Evangelical Christians, claim that climate change is not real and that scientists seek to create an atmosphere of deception by using scare tactics. To what end still mystifies me. They call environmental scientists and people that are concerned about global environment change and the welfare of all living creatures on this planet the Green Dragon cult. Let's watch what they have to say regarding the cult of the Green Dragon.
Around the world, environmentalism has become a radical movement, something we call the Green Dragon, and it is deadly. Deadly to human prosperity, deadly to human life, deadly to human freedom, and deadly to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Make no mistake about it, environmentalism is no longer your friend. It is your enemy. And the battle is not primarily political or material. It is spiritual. As Christians, we must actively trust God and obey His word. So when it comes to environmental stewardship, we must reject the false worldview, the faulty science, and the counterfeit gospel that threatens to corrupt society and the church. We must exercise wise dominion over the magnificent planet God has entrusted to us.
Let me assure you that science does not have a hidden agenda designed to mislead people on this very real threat to our environment. Our environment is out of balance due to man-made causes. I think if you understand how Mother Nature works, you will begin to understand the very real threat that we as a species are up against.
Climate change is occurring. Earth is warming. In terms of global averages, the past decade is almost 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than 100 years earlier.
The first calculation that the greenhouse gases emitted by the burning of fossil fuels could actually change the Earth's climate was done in the 1890s. And so scientists have been looking very carefully at this question for a long time. The thing that's changed is that in the last 20 years, we really have much more extensive and richer sources of data, and we have much greater computing power.
These climate changes are largely caused by human activities. Multiple lines of evidence indicate that most of the warming over the past several decades can be attributed to human activities that release heat-trapping greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. We understand that much of the climate change we're seeing is being driven by emissions of greenhouse gases from activities like producing the energy we need, producing food that we need.
There are natural sources of CO2 emissions, but the pattern that we've seen is a very rapid increase in the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere, so that CO2 concentrations are reaching a level that's the highest in the last 800,000 years. And when we trace the record historically, looking at records in air bubbles trapped in ice, where we can do very accurate measurements, we see that that rise has occurred since the Industrial Revolution, about 1750, when humans began to use fossil fuels very substantially.
We know how much is being emitted from activities like the burning of coal, oil, and gas, and we have a pretty good idea of how much is being emitted from deforestation and agricultural processes and so forth. We can also link some of the gases that are in the atmosphere with their sources through the use of chemical fingerprints. Solar inputs matter very much. However, we know from measurements of solar inputs that they haven't changed over the last 30 or 40 years at least, at the same time that climate is warming. So solar inputs themselves cannot explain it. Climate changes are already having consequences for things that we care about. I mentioned sea level has risen about 8 inches in the last century. As temperatures increase, sea level is rising, both because of the thermal expansion of water, because of more heat there, but also because of more input of water, fresh water from the glaciers, because the glaciers are melting. There is more precipitation falling in very intense downpours now than ever before, because there's more runoff occurring and often more flooding is associated with that. There are more intense heat spells. There's challenges to water resources now because, in some places, because of more drought. In parts of the world, and including the western United States, much greater frequency and intensity of wildfires. And all of these things are affected by climate. They're also affected by other things that people do. And so our level of certainty that absolutely connects climate change with all of those impacts is pretty great, but it's not complete. Yeah, lots of people have said to me, well, I just don't believe in climate change. And my answer is, you know, this is not about a belief. This is about evidence. This is about observations. This is about an accumulated body of knowledge that tells us something about the way the world is working. We are having a huge footprint on the planet. So it's very important at this point that we begin to think about ways to produce energy to meet the needs of people, to produce food to meet the needs of people without having the negative consequences on the climate system.
The science is very clear. Unlike what the evangelical Christians are claiming, scientists are no longer debating the basic facts of climate change. They're trying to figure out how to stop it or correct it. Thousands of scientific experts, collectively known as the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, concluded that there is a greater than 90% likelihood that people are causing global warming. I am not sure what kind of games that the evangelical Christians are playing, but the threat is very real. We could experience more intense storms, more pronounced droughts, and coastal areas more severely eroded by rising seas. Our planet could, even if unchecked, could become like Venus, with a thick atmosphere of runaway greenhouse gases. Well, that's it for me. I'm Francis Nye. Thank you for joining me on today's Religious Truth Weekly. I'll see you next week. Remember to like us on Facebook and to subscribe to us on YouTube. Have a great week. Bye.